Welcome to the Great Plague, where everyone takes the weight. This week, I have to talk about the Pope. So, President Biden awarded the nation's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, to Pope Francis. The honor came with distinction, becoming the first person to receive the added level of honor by Biden. So he didn't just get the Presidential Medal of Freedom, he got the highest above all the other people who got it. Okay? In the statement, the White House commended Pope Francis for his commitment to serving the poor, as well as advocating for peace and protecting the planet. A loving pastor, he joyfully answers children's questions about God. A challenging teacher, he commands us to fight for peace and protect the planet. A welcoming leader, he reaches out to different faiths. The first pope from the Southern Hemisphere, Pope Francis is unlike any who came before. That's the quote written by your so-called non-religious administration. Of course, Biden is the second Catholic president, but we'll get to that. Let's see what they say about that. Oh, it concluded, above all, he is the people's pope, a light of faith, hope, and love that shines brightly across the world. So, enough about that crap. I'm gonna talk about this. Daniel Mackler is one of my favorite YouTubers. He's one of the few that I could actually recommend. Like one of the very few I can actually recommend. Of course, I don't agree with everything Daniel says, but he's a thoughtful person. He's a smart person. And he's not afraid to say unpopular truths. And that's what I really like about him. And of course, he's, dedicated his life to helping other people, hurt people, so let's just sort of skim through this if we can.
I think society has an ideal that people be addicts, that people have addictions. And I don't just mean my society, my American society. I think it's true the whole world over. I think the ideal for the world is that people be addicted, that people not really see what's going on the inside, not really see the truth of what's going on outside of them. Instead, they cover it over, they smooth it over, they smile it all up with addictions. And often, I really mean addictions in the plural, because I think most people have a number of addictions. And I think, unfortunately, the word addiction gets really limited and pinpointed onto bad people. Oh, addictions to nasty illegal drugs that kill you, fentanyl and heroin and cocaine, or nasty addictions like, people going into prostitution, you have a bad sex addiction. I think a lot of times...
I think one of the main unspoken things about addiction is that everyone who's addicted to something has some sort of underlying psychological issue, or at least, the very least, some sort of unhappiness that they're trying to deal with. And when you look at us, we don't just have one addiction, we got 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 addictions. For me, and I left a comment on this video, but for me, it was a combination, or is a combination, I should say. Not so much anymore because I've kind of broken some of my addictions, but for me, it was an addiction that the combination of weed, internet, and art. Art was a big one for me. I've done every kind of art, illustration, music, videography, poetry, on and on and on. And, I threw myself into that in a way that doesn't even make sense. Because I was never the type of artist who really wanted to share my art with the world. I knew it was it wasn't pretty enough to share with the world. It was my inner, things that I was trying to work out. So in a way, what Daniel's saying here is that when you say that society prefers people to be addicts, society prefers people to be broken. Society prefers people to be emotionally unhappy. Society prefers people to be separated from each other. Society prefers people to have physical addictions. Society prefers people to have mental addictions. Society prefers people to be physically unhealthy. Why there's billions of advertising to us on unhealthy products, and it's totally legal. As long as you're not literally selling like heroin or something like that, you can almost sell anything with enough marketing. So why is it legal to market unhealthy sugar products to little kids? Because society wants us to be weak. And what is society really? That's the topic for another question.
The addictions are to things that are very societally accepted. And I think this is what people want to have themselves. They want.
I mean, the two big societally accepted drugs are caffeine and alcohol.
Everyone around them to have. I think governments want people to have this. I think governments want their citizens to be addicted and have their eyes closed and not know.
There you go. He said it.
Parents want their children to be addicted so that their children will not turn their focus to how screwed up and sick their parents were. I think people want their friends to be addicted. I think people want their partners to be addicted. I think really addictions are the norm. And what am I talking about with addictions? I've talked about this in other videos, and I may be repeating myself, but I really think this is worth repeating. Addictions. Things that really stop us from looking primarily within and knowing who we really are, what's really going on the core of our inner selves, knowing our inner truth, being connected to our true inner feelings, our pain, our unresolved traumas, our rage, our sadness, our sorrow. Oh God, our sorrow. Our sorrow for how we weren't loved properly, how we were rejected for our true selves 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times along the way.
So if society not only encourages us to be this way, but it also removes our faculties, our support system to work through any of it, right? Because everyone's chasing the dollar. And when everyone's chasing the dollar, how can there ever be any real families? How can there ever be any real communities? There can't be. There just can't be.
The sorrow and anger and betrayal about the truth of who our parents really were. I think most people are so blocked and blind to knowing who their parents were. They'll do anything to keep the lie alive. Oh, I had a good childhood. My parents loved me. It was great. I think of how many people say that. I think it's the norm. Most people say, oh, I had a really good childhood. And no one ever criticizes someone for saying they had a good childhood. I've known a lot of people who say, oh yes, I had a good childhood, where actually I witnessed their childhood. Sometimes I was an adult and witnessed their childhood when they were children, or I was a child next to them and I saw what happened. And it wasn't a good childhood. There was pain, there was rejection, there was violation, there was harm, there was loneliness, sorrow, sadness, bullying, cruelty, anger.
And then they tell themselves they had a good childhood, and so they go ahead and replicate that with their own children.
And they forget it, they block it out, they don't want to know. They cover it over with 1,000,000 different addictions. And what are the most common societally accepted addictions? Well, number one, I think, is romance. People, they fall in love. They fall in love with their partners fall in love with them. But I don't think
their partner gives them a short-term ego boost, but over time the ego boost goes away and they realize that they don't really like the person or even really know the person because they don't like themselves or even really know themselves.
It's really love. Really.
And then they have children. Because that's going to fix it all, right? That's going to bring us together as a
not
family.
love at all so often. Sometimes there's a little bit of early kindness in it, but a lot of times it's a combination of manipulating the other people through really kind behavior, but really what the person feels when they are in love, oh, I'm so in love with this person, is they are falling deeply into the fantasy that this other person will love them. This other person is their idealized parent that they never had, and that this person will rescue them from all the pain of their childhood, all the pain.
All the repressed pain that they're not dealing with, so they're just going to push it out onto someone else.
Of their blocked traumas, all the pain of all the things that they never got from their cruel parents, who they may not even recognize honestly as having been cruel. But then there are all sorts of other drugs that people use. Religion, that's a big one. I see that a lot. People falling into religion as an addiction, believing in some savior. And if I can only believe in this savior.
Because it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good to believe something that may or may not be true. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a metaphysical belief that is somehow empowering to you. The problem is that these churches are set up to take your power away.
Of other drugs that people use. Religion, that's a big one. I see that a lot. People falling into religion.
Religion is worse than a drug. Heroin addicts don't go line up to go fight wars against each other because they believe they're going to heroin land. Think of all the brutality and murder that has gone on behind religion. It's not just a drug, it's something far worse than that.
As an addiction, believing in some savior. And if I can only believe in this savior who loves me, this savior who maybe is only a mythological creature, who makes me feel good, who loves me, a mythological creature who may have been alive or may not have been alive.
And now that all our authentic, genuine communities are destroyed, religion is all that's left now. Right? Where are you going to find fellowship? Where are you going to find community? Where are you going to find a like-minded group of people? Where are you going to find a group of caring people who try to care about each other? Rational people say, here's the evidence. It could be this, probably, or it could be this, maybe. They don't say, and on the 12th day, God built a cathedral. And, it's a scam. You have to be smart enough to know that that's a scam. But because we're so emotionally broken, you see really smart people justifying religion. And I've seen some people go deep into the intellectual side of religion trying to justify it. It's all based on real principles and all this stuff, but they can never show you any evidence of how that is. So we're all addicted, It's like those free thinkers. They think they're not addicts, but they are. They're addicted to this sense of belonging they have with a corporate entity. And that's what these religions are. They're corporate entities that have become our culture. Our culture is corporate. Which religion, which corporate God do you want to believe in? Which corporate band do you want to listen to? Which corporate movie do you want to watch? Which corporate lifestyle do you want to embrace? Do you want to be a skateboarder? Go buy a skateboard and buy some ripped up pants and buy some Ollie shoes, and there you go. So everything we do is corporate. So how the hell can we be free thinkers when every societal institution is here to enslave us? Everything that they push on us is here to enslave us, make us addicts, make us weak, make us sick, make us alone, make us isolated, make us dumbed down, make us believe in things that aren't true. And then if you notice it, then what? Then the free thinkers are going to call you a conspiracy theorist.
People are addicted to that, and they behave even like the worst drug addicts. If you challenge them on this addiction, they can become angry, they can become hostile. You hate religion, you hate my religion, you are a heathen, you're a bad person, you are a vile person, you are evil for going against my religion. And then it's even funny. Some people have different religions where they basically have the same fundamental belief of some external savior, but the religions don't overlap with each other, so that they hate each other, even though they believe in religions of peace and love and salvation. Because the other person's religion is different, it challenges the fundamental addictive nature of their religion.
Superficially different, I might add. They're the same religions with different costumes.
And then I could just go down the list of other addictions that people, maybe who are not religious, or maybe who are not in romantic relationships, or maybe don't even have children, use to block the fundamental truth within them. Work. People who are just workaholics, who work, and all their mental energy and all their feelings and all their thoughts go into work. Whatever their work might be, their vocation, or maybe their avocation, or their passion. There are also artists who are just addicted to their art, compulsively producing art.
Yep.
It doesn't get to the core of who they are at all. And actually, that was never the purpose of their art. The purpose of their art was the opposite, to get them away from who they are, away from their feelings, so they can disassociate, separate themselves from their inner selves.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that would be exactly how I would describe myself, but it's pretty close. I mean, my art was not about getting in touch with my emotions. My art was all intellectual. It was all coming from the ego, and I think that's what most art is. The only art that's not coming from the ego and the intellect is stuff that's from like emotional nuts, like Van Gogh, right? Van Gogh painted in a way that no one ever painted before, but the guy was insane. I mean, demonstrably insane. But everyone says, oh, what an amazing... So, that's another thing, is how we hold up insane, crazy people as our role models. A lot of people say that great artists are all nuts, or they're all selfish people, or the great man theory. I mean, it's all an ego trip. It's all an ego trip.
Food, drugs, alcohol, pets. I see a lot of people addicted to their pets. Their pets become this surrogate child for them, this thing that loves them unconditionally, and all their energy, and also sometimes even all of their money and all their time and all their thoughts, and the structure of their life is around their pet. That's another big addiction I see, especially in rich countries
yeah, he said it. I mean, people from other countries make fun of us because we don't have any friends, we just have pets. I mean, it's better than nothing. But again, rich countries, which countries are going to be more dissolute as far as the communities, right? The more wealth there is, the more stratification there is. Not just of the wealth, but of the people. There's no communities left. The people where communities are, the countries where communities are still intact, look at us like we're crazy, sitting alone in a room with a machine, watching videos, petting a dog, because they still have their family, Whereas we don't have our family, do we? Most of us don't anymore. They don't live close. They're not close, and how many close-knit families are there still in America, and then where do you find them? Right? You find them in rural areas, or you find them in less economically advantaged areas. It's the money culture. We've driven this world down into a pit.
I think about addictions. And I think I'll close with this. I think sometimes addictions are not just intended to block people, maybe myself even at times, to block us from looking at the painful truth of our own still wounded child within us, the rejected child from our family system years or decades ago. I think sometimes the addictions, maybe all the times too, simultaneously, are intended to block us from the pain of the horror
of what's going on.
Of
what's going on in this world. The horror of every day you have to get up, and if you want to go get food to eat, you got to burn gasoline, destroying our planet ever more. You have to buy food, animals that are tortured in cages. I mean, just torture beyond anything you could imagine. You want to be vegan? Great. Now you're buying a bunch of vegetables that were clear cut the land, covered it with pesticides, and now we have an insect apocalypse. So forget birds. Once there's no insects, there's not going to be any larger life forms. I mean, everything we do, look at what we do for fun. Look what we do for fun. Ask yourself, do your most fun activities destroy the planet? I know mine do. And I'm pretty, I'm pretty eco, but I still have to drive 15 minutes to get to the park, to run around in nature. I still have to pay someone to grow food for me. So not only are we prisoners and we're trapped in this society, but we're trapped and forced to be unethical. You have to do unethical things to live. And then you say, well, what is the only ethical choice? Suicide? Well, that's not ethical either, is it? That's not ethical on the most basic level of nature. Animals don't commit suicide in nature until they're ready to die, until it's time to die. They don't do it because they're unhappy. I mean, the rise in suicide, that's an indicator of the unhappiness in our first world countries. Why we have all these addictions, blocking the world out. So what Daniel said about uncomfortable truths, that's what his channel is about, and that's what my channel is about. And I think if there is an answer now to all the things that are going on in this world, it's that. We can't stop this destruction that we've already started. We can't escape the prison that we've built for ourselves. We can't do all those things to get free. We can't put our communities back together. We can't. What can we do? We can speak the truth. We can speak the truth about what's really happening. Because what else is there to do? What else can you do? What's the most ecologically positive thing you could do? Blow your brains out? What can we do? We can tell the truth. First and foremost, we can tell the truth about why we're addicts, why we're doing what we're doing. And, that mentality does not win you a lot of friends, I'll tell you that. Because in a society full of addicts and religious fanatics and political fanatics and football fans and all the rest of it, all these people addicted to corporate culture, nobody wants to tell the truth. Addiction is accepted. Telling the truth is not accepted. Addiction is accepted. Telling the truth about who you're really voting for is not accepted. So that's why people like me and Daniel became truth speakers, because that was the only avenue that was left. It's the only avenue left to be free. It's the only avenue left for any kind of real freedom. You want to be a free thinker? Then you have to speak the truth, not the truth that's palatable to your friends and your political party and the people that you don't want to offend and you want to get invited, you know? It's tough. It's very tough because most people can't stand to hear the truth. They'd rather pop the pill, take the drug, watch the movie, watch the football game, go to the church, sing the hymn. Truth hurts. And that's why we're all addicts. It's the Great Plague.